Ha ha ha. What's going on? I'm Sam. Directly across the table from me is
Mr. Nobe.
How's it going, guys? All right. So, real quick, we want to let you guys know about some cool stuff going on. There's a gig or two coming up on Friday, is there not?
Most definitely. MJ's going to be playing at the Fat House, and I'm going to be accompanying him on a couple songs. And then after that, we're going to be at the Red Room, and we're going to be playing with Sweatshop Union.
Nice.
And that should be awesome.
Nice. Fat House, Red Room.
Yeah, I think Red Room, we're going to probably play a little later, probably 10 or 11. And then at Fat House, I believe Michael starts at 7 or 8.
So Friday night, you got your whole night planned out. Just do that damn thing.
Mm.
All right. Real quick, I wanted to start off with the podcast talking about the Big Dipper. Big Dipper is a place, that building's like over 100 years old. You guys may know Empyrean occupied that building for a while. Right now, they're on Indiegogo. The people who bought the building, they're trying to get money set up so they could open the Big Dipper. No, but I know you got a lot of experience with this place, like Big Dipper.
It'd be cool. I mean, I really like the space. That's where I actually met a lot of the musicians I ended up working with for a very long time. I met MJ there during an open mic, and I got reacquainted with my buddy Dave Brady, who I worked at GameStop with. It's awesome building, man. We recorded the second Spider album there, and it shows it's like, very old because it's fucking built weird, man. There's like all these weird little back doors and like crazy, like, I don't know. It's cool. It's got like some character.
Yeah, I've seen some awesome shows there. Basically, if you guys remember, the reason the original Empyrean shut down is because of the functions they were doing. They said the fire sprinkler system needed to be set up for a nightclub, and that's a lot of money, 50 G's in fact. So that's what they're trying to raise on Indiegogo. If you guys donate $10, they're gonna hook you up with ticket, $25, 2 tickets. A whole lot of options, including something where you can get an unlimited pass, or any big ballers out there, 25 G's, baby. You're going to get lifetime pass to Big Dipper, and they're going to put your name on the stage. Like, that's going to be your stage. My advice is, like, don't do your name. Do something awesome. Like, because if you get to dictate the name of the stage, like, just call the stage greatest stage in the world. Something like that. Go ridiculous with it. That's on Indiegogo. I'm loving watching, like, stuff like Indiegogo, stuff like Kickstarter, where all these like little super funds coming up from people coming together, saying what they want to put money in. Like, it's up to the people. They have 56 days left on that one, by the way. And I don't know. It's a trend we're seeing in a lot of shit. It's people are getting the power.
Yeah, it's cool that it can happen so quickly, where you don't have to have like a fucking bake sale, you don't have to make cakes anymore. You can just be like, there's actually a lot of stuff I've been watching game-wise where there's these actually a really cool team of developers getting together and trying to make games that, probably wouldn't get past the initial things in terms of just looking at and determining whether they're going to make money off it, like ideas that are really cool that just never get that push because they might be seen as some niche title, and so it's really cool to see these kind of things happen, and they happen quickly. Like Oculus had an awesome backing. There's a ton of stuff that just if it's a product that the people want, now they have a more direct way of expressing that.
That, and also I've noticed, especially with stuff like games, it's awesome marketing. People get hyped for the game because that's why they're going and donating the money, because they're like, okay, this could be awesome. And it goes and creates that power change a little bit, because now you are this indie developer. No one wanted to mess with you. Now you're something in popular demand.
Yeah. And it's what's really cool that I've seen is that developers generally, game-wise, are being like, hey, if we reach this goal, then we'll make sure we guarantee we'll implement this game idea that we wanted to do. Or, if we hit $500,000, then the map's going to expand by 2, because we're going to have the money and resources to be able to do that kind of that building. And so, it's really cool. And I think, especially with places like Big Dipper, like having the resource of the internet and a really quick way to, you don't have to send people a flyer in, you don't have to like bother people necessarily because it's kind of in the background. But if you want to participate and get that place going, then you have a route now.
Exactly. That, and it's one of those things where, especially when you talk about a situation with the Big Dipper, it creates that little bit of local pride, because it's like, oh, Big Dipper's back. I used to remember going to this place for shows when I was a teenager. It was awesome. But now it's also that, plus you help bring it back. I mean, don't you think that adds to something when knowing you made a little bit of difference in saying like, no, this building, this like institution we had in the music scene or just the downtown neighborhood, I want it, and then being able to do that.
Well, and I guess people have always been kind of doing that in terms of like actually going to shows and paying door cover. But this is one that, I mean, the inherent difference is obviously that the Big Dipper's closed, and so I think there's a bit of pride you could take in terms of the revitalization of the downtown scene and trying to get. We have venues that seem to be at times really kind of typed, like in terms of like you go to Mootsy's for your like more punk shows. I think Mootsy's is probably the most open in terms of like being able to handle any type of music and generally get a really cool crowd.
Right. Well, it's one of those environments. Before the podcast, we were talking about it. It's one of those environments where just the way it's set up, if the group that's there is killing it, no matter what genre they are, because the place is so small and they have it upstairs so people are looking down on it and you're on the same level as the people there, that place is going to explode.
Right. That's the same thing that would happen at Zola, is that you would just get the fucking wildest shows because this is bottleneck that leads to the stage, and so the dance floor is generally packed up, and then everywhere else is packed up, and so like being on stage and looking at it, it's like, holy shit, there's a fucking lot of people here. The difference
and it's a really cool space to perform in.
Yeah. No, I love the art and architecture of that building. It's really cool. And Mootsy's is, similar. I think Mootsy's not having a stage is actually kind of cool in some instances because the intimacy that kind of builds there, being at eye level.
It's weird when it's like your difference is only like 2 feet.
Right. And
like
how much it impacts.
Yep. Yeah, like that, and I did 1 or 2 shows there a while ago. That, and there's something about like you sit there, you kill it on a verse or something, and being able to just give that high five to that random dude in the audience. There's something about that. Little update, some of the things we talked about last week. Cars Corner, what happened was the owners decided not to renew the lease. They want to open up Cars Corner in another venue, do it like that. That's going to be months off. So as for the KTFO battles we were talking about, it doesn't help it with that. However, there has been an update in that, hasn't there, Mr. Nobe?
Yeah, it's going on. April 30th, the Final Four will meet and we will
battle royale.
Yeah, it should be pretty awesome. I'm excited about it. Did you see where that's taking place?
That's at the Hop.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're definitely gonna have that battle vibe. Those concrete walls sitting there. It's gonna be super gnarly, and that's gonna be Nobe, Chinky, intricate, unique, nuff said, motherfucker.
Yeah, it should be crazy.
Yeah. That, and I'm sure they're going to have a bunch of local acts playing with that because, 3 battles, you need to fill up some time.
Exactly. I'm sure there'll be...
Do a round robin. Like, it doesn't go for that head-to-head thing, but just be able to see everyone's matchup against each other.
That would be cool.
That would be really interesting. That'd really test people.
I wonder if Pest has thought about that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be gnarly as all hell. So that's what's going on with that. So, switching gears from local to the global. Ever since, even while the whole Sochi thing was going on, Ukraine is a shitstorm right now, my friend.
Yeah, and they have been for a while. It looks like in terms of like their when it originated and where it's gone since then. It looks like they've got a lot accomplished though.
Yeah, and I sit there and I look at it, and every day everything changes. Like most people don't realize this has been going on since November, and the original things they wanted was the president ousted. They wanted them to be more part of the EU, get with the whole European country vibe as to being just a country that's, Russia's little brother under their control. And that whole thing has just escalated to the point where you have Molotov filling stations behind like these barriers protesters have set up. But like I said, it's one of those things that changes every day. Right now, Crimea is going nuts because they have a lot of pro-Russia people in there. But it's easy to get caught up in that and go, oh, it's such a mess, when really, when you talk about revolution, when you talk about change.
When isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
there's never a revolution that made a big difference generally without, real. And that's the thing is, it's scary to think that that's the only way to really get shit done. It's like the problems we have in our country, it seems that we don't have necessarily the same issues that they had, I know.
But we still had to go through drafts of it. And
when it did, the real revolutions that happened in this country happened, and there was violence always, generally. Like when you have to oust people, when you are fighting for something like, fighting for slavery, fighting for your freedom,
slavery or lack thereof, of like not having.
Yeah, not fighting force. This ain't the Deep South.
Nay.
But no, it's crazy to think about. That's how far violence can push something, and it sucks that that's the route. It's like we want change here,
especially now where each nation has been so focused on becoming militarized. That's something that's been going on, but with what we have now, it's one of those things where when you're going against the government, that's the card they're going to pull.
Yeah.
Eventually, that's going to happen. But I don't know. I've been getting a lot from people where it's like looking at all this stuff. It started with the Arab Spring, but you're looking at what's going on in Egypt, where it's like, it's just a mess. They go put one guy in, they throw him out, put another guy in, they throw him out. That's what I'm saying. It's drafts.
Yeah,
it's figuring it out.
It's never perfect on the first.
Right. And if you look at what the people are doing, it's because whenever you start a revolution, groups are always going to go in and fill. The Taliban, that's how they've been getting all their power, is someone gets overthrown, Taliban slips in. The biggest problem everyone is having because you're in the midst of a revolution is a lack of order. And, they got order for you, baby.
Yeah.
They got all the order you can want.
Yeah, right.
And then they go and stifle it. Right now, Egypt's stuck in between either going with a really military-based, all the generals and ministers of defense running the country, or the Islamic Brotherhood, I believe. So they're going through that, trying to find the right answer. I don't know. I feel like there almost needs to be a revolution. Like, this is something UN could do. It's obviously one of those ideas that would fail because people are involved. But I feel we're at a time where we could almost have like a revolution referee. Where it's like, okay, you guys are going nuts. You guys are going nuts. You sneaky bastards are trying to go through the back door.
Right.
Let's get this resolved.
Does he have like whistles and he's like walking around throwing cards and shit on the ground?
Or set up some sort of...
some arbiter to the conflict.
Yeah, but I'm saying set up some sort of blueprint. Like, okay, we're going to get elections going here and here. While you guys are setting up the government. I believe this was a problem with Venezuela. Or actually, I want to say Ukraine... Egypt and Venezuela may all have this problem where it's like, while you guys are doing the bylaws for that president, you may want to put an impeach option so you don't have to go and overthrow him every time you don't dig it. Separation of power, that sort of thing. Someone to just kind of set that stuff. But ultimately, I don't know. It could be a great thing. It sounds good on paper, but like I said, people are involved, so... Now people are going to say, well, whatever group is doing that, they're going to put their agenda on people. But, I feel like there's been enough good enough governments set up to this point to where, we can figure out a blueprint somewhat easily.
Well, it's like looking at what they want, like in terms of any country that is going through revolution. And, I don't know about the idea of the UN stepping in. I think that the idea...
a global organization.
I think any kind of intervention, if it's not... Let's say the country split 50-50 about the decision, whether you want to impeach or if you want to, I don't know. It's why do you draw the line where you do, and who do you help? And, I I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so complicated that it's one of those things that where people always are like, U.S. should stay to U.S. shit and fucking.
Yeah.
And I almost agree with it in terms of like being any kind of force that's gonna enforce one side of the coin or the other. I always worry about those biases and stuff, and it's the same issues that come up and why people, have an uprising in the first place. Generally, is like, hey, we think they're shiesty motherfuckers. And the other side's probably like, yeah, they're shiesty, and then it's like, okay, so who in the UN or whoever is not shiesty? Like who in the world isn't corrupt? Like,
right,
really?
because how do you think they got to that power in the first place?
Right.
And I mean, once you get that power,
not to say that people don't get it legitimately and
right.
actually do care, but I mean, it's just I always think risking having more influence from somebody that isn't actually living there and isn't in the ground and isn't like obeying the rules set by their government. I think it's really hard to get that perspective of why even the real reasons people are uprising, like that feeling of your country being
right
in turmoil.
But I mean, usually people do that based off of feelings. So they go and they have the uprising, but with it, they no plan what to do after. And that's usually where these problems arise. And it's not like people aren't already interfering. Like, I mean, Ukraine, we're getting so many Cold War shadows over this where, Russian military sitting there doing war games in it. Putin's obviously backing a Ukraine that is more Russia aligned.
Right.
And then, so that real as fuck people in the background, that's how we do it. And that was the first time we actually had to press stop and play again. Dude, that was a huge fucking elephant that just came through here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, so how long do you guys have this elephant in the backyard?
A long time. And
really?
He is always hungry, and so he starts rummaging around.
Yeah, I know. But that backflip he did was pretty damn cool.
He's got good body control for an elephant,
Hey, you guys
quite nimble.
The
spryest elephant you'll ever see.
Yeah. No, like the Nobe circus coming soon. If you haven't already been a part of it.
It's fucking the most depressing.
All right, so back to other circuses we're talking about. So, I mean, all these people complaining that, why can't these people get it right? Realize it's a revolution. It's a mess. It goes nutty for everyone. The thing I find really interesting looking at all these things that are going on, whether you're talking Tunisia, whether you're talking Ukraine, whether you're talking Venezuela, whether you're talking one of the Turkey going through shit, one of the 50 other countries that are in this major change, is kind of seeing how different people do it. Venezuela, for example, really cool. Basically, after Chavez died, Hugo Chavez died. I mean, he was a really charismatic dude, but that Socialist Party, the next guy who came in, Maduro, he's a goof. He's just baloney. And so for the elections, basically 40 college students this whole thing started with a hunger strike that went on for weeks and straight nonviolent protests. And then feathers got ruffled. Venezuelan military got involved, and then because Venezuela is the big lifeline to Cuba gets involved, and that whole thing starts going downhill. But I mean, that's always going to happen. I mean, has there ever been an instance, even with the most nonviolent protests, where violence didn't break out because of whether it be the opposition or a bad seed in the protesting side? That's just how it goes, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, now that it's turned violent, it's fucking sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the same thing in the Ukraine right now. The idea that, I mean, everybody heard about the medic being shot by that sniper. A very
right.
I don't know. It's sad to see people being so angry and trying to make change, and how people are just. So, I mean, the greed involved with trying to keep it the same way that, no matter what, we got to maintain our power. The will to power, man. It's a crazy thing. People die because of it.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, these are beliefs that they hold that much to the core.
Right.
Whether it's belief in doing the right thing or you're in a position of power, and that fear of not only losing power or being exiled or possibly executed.
Right.
I mean, people do crazy stuff. Earlier I was talking about this whole revolutionary referee idea. Pretty flawed idea. I'll admit that. But the thing that made me realize is we've had that referee in the past, and what that referee should be, especially in situations like Ukraine, where information is so discredited, because if it comes from the government, they're going to have a different body count than the people on the ground. They're going to be pointing fingers at each other, all that stuff. So who's this person who tells how it's supposed to be, gives some sort of base information for people to make propagated ideas off of? A fucking actual media.
Yeah.
That's telling the truth. And that's what I feel is maybe that's what's been missing.
Well,
because, I mean, even if we look at stuff like Ukraine, I mean, you're not sitting there questioning that, all right, is this the Western bias? Because how we feel, towards Russia, even though it's better than it ever has been. I mean, even in looking at the Sochi stuff, I still get that vibe of resentment coming from U.S. media.
Yeah, maybe. Fuck, man. How complicated can it possibly be? I mean, it's just so complicated. Like,
As complicated as anything when you have millions of opinions thrown into it,
exactly.
as deeply as we were talking.
Right. And when, I read something to the fact that, like, the most, like, democracy is the best system we've come up with generally, but it's just the idea that human beings are involved with is the thing that kind of fucks it up.
Right.
And no, it's crazy, man. It's scary. But it's at the same time, I wish things like that could happen here, But I think that, just like you said about the media, like, the idea, if we had a real media, countless people are bringing up the fact that, like, CNN.com, the front page had Bieber over fucking like revolution.
They stopped the broadcast and brought that in as breaking news.
And then they got right back to the Biebs, man. That shit's like...
no, it was the other way around. They were talking about the protest. It's like, oh, all this stuff's going on. Wait a second, this just in, Bieber, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, see, I think this is the problem with capitalism in the long run, is because of the idea of marketing to a group of people, right? So they, shareholder-wise, they have to, appeal to them. And then they want to appeal, by doing that, they want to appeal to the largest demographic of people so they can get the most advertisement revenue. There's so much money involved in media that it kind of changes the idea where you can't necessarily do large-scale real journalism anymore, because the idea that more people will tune in for Bieber than they will the Ukraine revolution, or what's happening in Kiev, even though it's obviously more important, like, the almighty dollar speaks, and they have to, and that's the problem with media, is because our traditional media, I think that the internet blows that whole thing out of the water. And so that's where I think most people that give a shit are probably not watching CNN anyway. They're probably online.
Yeah, checking whatever news source they've become comfortable with.
Yeah. And hopefully checking ones that are not, and just getting a really well-rounded picture.
Right. Like, get both sides. And the internet kind of takes away one of the sides that makes running a media organization so difficult, because you're balancing two things. You're balancing giving unbiased news that people need to hear, whether they want to hear it or not, whether it's what they want to hear or not. Just put it out there because, this is the world around you, and this knowledge is going to be a tool that helps you get through there and make decisions about that. Balancing that with being a business, and being a business is catering to your customers.
Yeah.
Going and taking care of what you need to do to pay the bills, and running your business in a way so you could pay bills better, make more profit.
Exactly. Well, and that's the idea.
Those two things go in complete contrast of each other at a lot of points.
At all the times. And so, the sensationalization of stuff for entertainment purposes is just not what the fucking real news is supposed to be about. And then, so, I think there has to be a change of the definition, because, like, shows, like, a lot of Fox shows, when your broadcast is filled with more opinion than fact, that is not fucking news. And people gotta quit that shit. We don't claim to be a news organization. We don't claim to be journalists. We're obviously speaking from our experience and our opinions and stuff. And that's what they do, but they label it as news. And that's just fucking wrong.
Right. I mean, because Jesus Christ, you guys went to school for, I mean, that, and if you're talking about Fox News, half the people you see on air, they don't have journalism backgrounds. Like, a lot of them, they're just talking heads. Do you ever see the thing with that comedian? Oh, what's this dude's name? Dude goes on CNN, or not CNN, goes on Fox News, and basically just calls him out on Fox News, where he's like, what are you guys doing? This shit isn't a news show. This is a joke. Like, you guys,
Jon Stewart?
No, it wasn't Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart's been on there numerous times. And,
yeah.
And
well, it was funny because it was one of those things where Fox News proved this comedian's point better than the comedian could have, because he's basically saying, like, you know, you guys are giving a dog and pony show out here. This is ridiculous. And he's like, wait a second. Anchor cuts in. Wait a second. I don't know about that. We dig hard and stuff like that. And, they cut him off real quick. Oh, so segue to the next thing. This coming in.
On YouTube, you can
Star
actually...
Trek. Hey, look at these Star Trekky beauties. Yeah. Just this total BS story.
How every fucking news channel turned into E! Entertainment. I don't understand.
Because E! Entertainment came on, people got into it, and they're like, well, that's what
there's money in there. It's the same thing that happened with History Channel, the Science Channel. It's why...
Reality shows, yeah.
And, I actually read a really good Reddit post about the idea that why reality TV changed things so much. And it used to be... back when the Real World came out, like the original, like the first,
boring,
because it was fucking real.
Exactly.
And they would have to pick and choose stuff, but you saw the progression where people spoke, like, most of the show's cool, but it's really, everybody has a natural kind of lean towards conflict and stuff like that, and so the idea of putting people that might be more volatile around each other, out of all the footage they capture, making sure to promote the ones that show unharmony or disharmony between the group and stuff. And then that has been rolling since the early 90s. Now it's at this 20 years later, you look and fucking reality TV is crazy. It costs a fraction of what it costs to make any other type of show.
Yeah, because you don't got to pay writers. You don't have to pay all this stuff. And you're usually going to be able to screw the talent on contracts because they're people who aren't used to this business.
And, it's like you don't have to really build sets. You might, like, for Real World, they would, rent a house for a couple months or whatever.
Set up some stunts. Perhaps you're a survivor type.
Yeah, right? Well, and you look on the opposing side, I guess, in a sense, there's a lot more money being thrown into actual, like, productions in terms of, like, Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, where it's like millions of dollars per episode.
Well, when you talk about TV and stuff, that's kind of been the answer back, where it's like, okay,
they're still just on the wrong format.
Our writers aren't getting work. We're doing all these reality shows that are garbage. You want some good old TV? You want some good storylines? Boom, hitting you with Breaking Bad, Mad Men, like that whole run, which started with Sopranos, I know, like way before that stuff.
Yeah, and The Shield. There's always been really good TV out there, but now it seems like the quantity's getting better. I think especially just how they're being shot is so much better. There's nothing really I hate more, and I love Seinfeld, so don't fucking lambast me for this, is then a set and a live audience and just that one shot on a set, I love a camera that can move around, that you can get angles.
Where you feel more a movie environment than a TV environment? I
know the best shows, or the biggest shows are, shot like movies generally now. And it's amazing. I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day, the idea that live studio on stuff is more akin to doing a play. You know? Like every episode of Friends, where you have, the idea that it changes because you have distinct start times, and the idea that you can re-record something if it gets fucked up, which is very unplay-like, but it's that merging between plays and actual film.
That's my prediction. My prediction is we're going through this whole reality show thing. We're going through this serial television series trend where you follow along with it stuff. And then and you've seen a lot of comedies are also taking, like you said, they're shot more like Law & Order than they are Friends.
Yeah.
Like Louis, shot more like Law & Order.
Yeah, Louis obviously awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, but that's my prediction. 2-3 years, someone's going to come out and just be like, yo, all these people, they're our core audiences, they're 80s, they're 90s. We're going to hit them with a blast from the past, and someone's going to do a lifestyle sitcom thing. And after that stuff's finally gone extinct, it's going to come back, and they're going to kill with it, just on the nostalgia vibe.
True. I don't see it ever going away. I think people generally, like, a lot of people like that style, and I don't. Like, I don't like How You Met Your Mother. There's nothing I despise more really than people laughing and getting those cues to laugh. Like, I think that real comedy shines when laughing is so contagious that it's cheap. It's like cheap jokes generally, and it's like even when
it's like telling you like, hey, that was funny, laugh. Like you're telling me you haven't been in a point where you're watching a show and you see something and it's like, oh, that joke's not great. Like I've caught myself where it's like as soon as the laugh track comes on, I giggle a little bit. It's like, God, mate.
Like, how much better of a show is it without fucking people giggling after Louis C.K. jokes?
Yeah. Like I almost felt like when they were doing Lucky Louie, it was a little bit of a satire of the whole format.
Well, it was really weird that they were swearing all the time to me.
Yeah,
because I had
felt
just
like
watched
satire because it was everything that's not that type of show.
Right.
With them doing that type of show, like without them copying Married with Children, which was definitely a satire of that whole family-based, sitcom.
Well, All in the Family was similar too, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Like I really liked Married with Children when I was a kid. That show's fucking great. It's crazy. I know Louis had an episode in Louis about Lucky Louie. Really? And he was basically just obviously going through a bad time for some reason or another. And he's got offered to do this show, and he's doing it and he's reading the script and stuff, and he's trying to like make the show happen, but he just fucking can't do it because it's so fake. Like he says some bullshit. He like opens a beer on the side of a table, and his wife she's like, "Oh, Louis," or some shit like that, and he's like, "Why? Like I'm an asshole. Like why are be mad at me? Like why wouldn't?" Yeah. He wanted to like turn it into like they get divorced and shit.
Yeah,
like, he
and go with that and try and find humor in the real life shit.
And
well, you know what the two differences between those shows were, right? Lucky Louie, they put Louis C.K. I want to say he was on the writing team. You're on an HBO show. HBO's running it. Louis,
he gets to do everything. He produces,
Louis, he
directs.
Set up the ultimate contract where this is my shit. You take it or you leave it, but you don't touch it.
Right.
And
it's called creative control, man.
Yeah, exactly. And look at the difference in product.
Right.
Look at where it went. Like when you guys hire talent, trust that talent. That person got there for a reason.
Don't try to manufacture fucking emotions in a sense. Like when you get too many people involved at times, that's why, it's really hard for me to watch a lot of like late night TV. I know Fallon and Myers just took over their respective spots, which is cool because I really always like those guys in SNL. But like, the problem with like Leno for me is just like the structure of it, the fucking monologue and the stuff. Like
so done.
Yeah,
it's just over.
I mean, it's been, I don't know. I think if it's generally funny, then awesome. But I don't know. The idea of creative control is like you get when you get too many voices in the fucking pool and you're trying to make this thing happen, then it gets diluted. The real core greatness, you're just saturating it with other people's thoughts. And like when it's that pure form of like, this is my emotion and this is what I want to say, then you get the trueness.
Yeah. You need that person's vision, whoever created it, not even whoever created it, but whoever at the helm, let them do their thing. Another great example of that is the show Community. I don't know if there are two types of people I met: people who don't watch Community, who haven't seen it, and other people who are hooked on this show. This show, completely created by Dan Harmon, just really switched it up. Comedy style like shot style like Louis, so you're going in different rooms. It's not all in one set. But they had no qualm where it's like, oh, we're just going to change the style of the show. Someone went and like messed up. Whole thing takes place at community college. Someone went and like killed someone's potato in the science project. Whole episode Law and Order style. Go. And, they just go with it with all these.
Do they even have like the.
Oh, no. Like the theme.
Doon.
Like, yeah, no. Like.
Is it produced by Dick Wolf?
Like two characters automatically start like acting like detectives. When people talk, they sit up on the chair when they're sit up on the table when they're talking to the person like they do in Law and Order. The whole theme song. they did the show's same theme song, but they did it using the Law and Order instrumentation.
That's awesome.
And like each thing, they completely mimicked it.
See, I liked
when they do that with different styles. Then season 4, because this guy was changing so much stuff up, switching it up, like, well, we're gonna keep Community because our ratings aren't that bad for how much we screwed the show over and giving it bad time slots and don't promote it. But creator Dan Harmon, you're out of there. We got the reins. And they did this whole season where they rehashed everything that worked, did like, oh, you guys did a claymation episode? Well, this season we're going to do a puppet episode. And all this stuff just felt trite as hell.
Right.
And it just didn't work. Like, some people still liked it because they were going with some of those silly themes, but it just...
Mimicry is...
Yeah, it was...
I've been talking about that a lot lately. Like, the Godzilla trailer just came out, or the first and second one both feature a song that was in Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey. And it's... and I was also watching some David Fincher, Michael Bay thievery, or the reverse Michael Bay taking ideas and stuff from Fincher, like shot for shot shit. It's crazy.
I believe it. Michael Bay's just about, this looks good, put it on there.
Well, the same thing happened with Aronofsky after he did Pi and Requiem for a Dream, like that style of shooting, that like quick, real snap cuts of like, eyes dilating, pills being tossed into a hand. Yeah. Like people taking amazing original like ideas and mimicking them and cheapening it. The use of that song in Godzilla trailer is like so synonymous with 2001 to me. As soon as you hear it, I mean, because it's a crazy piece of music. It's just really high strings. It's just
and it's so dramatic. It pulls feelings out. You're talking about the Monolith theme, right?
From 2001? No, or I think it's like some choir singing a crazy note, and it's like the idea of ripping that off and throwing it on a fucking Godzilla movie. Like that's like 2001 speaks to my soul about like humanity and like what it is to be human and where we're from and where we're going.
The creative defense was some bullshit where it's like, well, we're saying this is a new era in Godzilla. We're taking that. We're making a statement, just like the Monolith comes and shows the age.
Right.
We're showing a new age of Godzilla.
Yeah, and I'm still gonna see it because I fucking like Godzilla, and I think the CG is cool.
To see what Godzilla looks like.
Yeah, no, he's huge. I think it's the biggest Godzilla they've ever had in a Godzilla movie. He's like 150 feet or 100 feet or some shit. He's just massive. I don't know. I hate the idea of robbing this fucking so rich source material. You take this, this one thing, you think, it's innocent. Like, we're just taking this song because it builds suspense in such an amazing way. When they're jumping off the back of that C-130 or whatever and parachuting down. It's like, yeah, it's a really cool scene, but the idea, that piece of music went to a movie that meant so much more than what you're portraying in this. And so, I mean...
that and movies have been terrible about that lately. Like, I'll hear the same cinematic score, not even a song, but the same cinematic score in like 4 or 5 different trailers. I mean, they've really gotten bad about that. But as per mimicry, and would you admit, though, like, I'm in no way am I defending what they're doing because that's blatant bad ripoffs. But with creative stuff, I have noticed in making my own stuff and seeing other people make stuff, there's a fine line because everyone who's creative, of course you're going to take things from other people. Oh, no. And between influence and ripping off.
Well, see, and I think when this isn't so much... It's like, okay, so I'm doing like a series of watercolors currently, and they're kind of like after a Chinese ink wash watercolor style. But I'm using it in a totally different way. Like I'm portraying things that look more...
You're doing a modern city context of an ancient style, kind of, right?
Kind of. I mean, I'm doing... It almost looks to me kind of anime-ish.
Didn't mean to pigeonhole you there.
Oh, no. It's... I don't know. I'm putting my spin on it,
Right.
The idea of just using a song in it, it is bullshit to me. I think that obviously that everybody's going to be influenced. Nobody lives in a vacuum. So everything you do... I mean, we talked about the idea of writing something and be like, man, am I biting this? Because, you listen to so much hip-hop, you're not sure what's coming out is always you in terms of, like, it just sounds like, man, I could have swore fucking,
And sometimes it is. And, like, sometimes it's like, okay, I got that. And sometimes it's like, no, your shit just reminds you of someone who does it established because it's good.
Oh, yeah, that's true. True. And I will catch it like sometimes like I'll say something I'm like, man, I swear like I had a line about I strain the thing between my temples to impress and aim for nothing less. There's a Jay-Z thing where he's like he talks about use the thing between my eyes to analyze life's ills and put it down, tie it real.
Right.
And so I was thinking when I was writing this, like, man, did Jay-Z fucking already say this shit? And then I looked back and it was like similar but different.
Yeah, I mean, you similar cadence, but your guys are going different ways there.
I mean, we're still talking about our brains, like, to do, to rap. Where he's saying the thing between my eyes, I'm saying the thing between my temples.
And when you wrote it,
so similar imagery, but it's not.
But when you wrote it, was it something where it's like, oh, I want to give it this vibe, or was it something organic that it came out?
Oh no, it was completely organic. It was like it was a day or two after Sam had passed, and I had to write. Like I wrote more than I ever in my life. Yeah, and that good art especially is going to be copied. And I have no problem with that. I just see like when it's a blatant copying, and then when it's not for necessarily self-expression or expression of a large grand idea, when it's done so cheaply for like a Godzilla thing, or Michael Bay stealing like shot for shot a number of Fincher movies or music videos.
And what that is though, like that's something different. And this might kind of help us find the answer as between that fine line we're talking, is what you were describing, that was something organic, and then later you looked at it, it's like, okay, it's similar there, but whatever. Meanwhile, with the Michael Bay stuff or that music thing, when they go use that same soundtrack, what they're doing is like, man, I wanted to get this vibe so it feels like this. So it's like that. So they go do it.
Right.
As opposed to making something their own way equally as powerful to go get that feeling. There's other ways to pull up the feeling they're trying to do instead of taking the same exact chorus someone else already used to give that feeling.
Right. No, and I totally agree. I think it's less expression when you're just straight up copying, And that's the thing is like, even if I accidentally had recited like word for word in the song I wrote or in the verse I wrote, like it was like just for me and my friends anyway, that song, I think we might play it in Spiders, but it was meant only as a form of self-expression, where these are like meant to make money. So if this makes sense money-wise, we're going to do it. It doesn't matter who we're belittling with it. Like, I mean, if you look at it like that, I suppose it can be kind of like, I don't think it's a big up to Kubrick in any means. I think it's just I think it's laziness. And
I guess we got to see the movie. If the movie comes out and it's like super weird and Bryan Cranston is having dreams of like Godzilla babies with green ooze like going down the walls and stuff, then maybe they are going for a Kubrick direction in the movie, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, if they could pull a really tight, nice, big picture around it. I thought Godzilla, the last Godzilla, had like in 2000, 2001 or whatever. Dude, it was like 98, I think.
That was just bad. Like, that was just
I liked the special effects for the day were pretty cool. And I liked Matthew Broderick.
It was Pepsi Godzilla. That whole thing, you could sum it up as Pepsi Godzilla.
Yep.
Like
the product placement was heavy.
Product placement was heavy. The whole movie looked like they're like, oh man, we need to do a Godzilla movie, but have that Independence Day impact.
Yeah.
So it had that same vibe where everything was broken up. Like they followed some sort of summer movie formula for it.
Right.
I mean, and then go down to the soundtrack where it's just like, you got fucking P. Diddy on Kashmir. You got Wallflowers singing David Bowie. And it's just like, oh.
It got weird.
Oh. Nothing genuine at all here.
Well, see, I actually just watched American Hustle, and I kind of had a similar feeling.
Really?
Yeah, I liked the acting. I liked the story. I liked the movie for the most part. But it just, I mean, I don't think they were out to trying to reinvent the wheel by any means. And I think maybe the strongest way they did that was Christian Bale's character. I really liked the conflict that he had to go through. I thought.
Do you think they tried to follow that Blow prototype a little too closely? And going with that
a little bit. It just felt like a movie I had seen before. And maybe one of the big things is the production value or the production quality is just fucking amazing. Everything, like the colors they chose, they nailed the style of dress, haircuts, like the whole
Right.
thing was just fucking pitch perfect in terms of like recreating the 70s. I thought that was amazing. I mean, I never lived through the thing, but I've seen photos. It was really impressive. But then I was just like, well, I feel like I've seen this movie, and I think I know what's gonna happen. There was some times where I did genuinely like, man, what is gonna happen? But then I was like, oh, I thought Amy Adams probably had the strongest performance in the whole movie. She really
Amy
killed
Adams
it.
has kind of been killing it lately. If
Yeah.
you look at her roles, like she's one of those people where I looked at, when she first came out, it's like, okay, one of those types. But I mean, you get into a lot of these movies. Was it The Fighter? The one with the same guy directed it, Christian Bale, Mark Wahlberg. She kills it in that. Yeah, I want to say the other one is Curveball. Kills it in that. Like, yeah, no, she's had some really strong performances going through that. And that director, he's one of those guys where he found his players.
David O. Russell.
Yeah, David O. Russell's found his players, and kind of like Tarantino, he likes these people he works with. He's gonna put them in as many scenarios as possible because that thing works. And they're either gonna find ways to reinvent the chemistry between each other, or it's going to get super stale.
Yeah.
And, that's up to them.
I was overall pretty impressed. I thought it was a very entertaining movie.
Let me throw a real wrinkle into this whole inspiration from an outside source to mimicry discussion we're having is, especially when you get to music, you have this other thing that happens where guys blatantly go and take things you've heard before, but they do it for a reason. Example I'm thinking of here is Girl Talk. Girl Talk, you go and, like, I think he throws an interesting wrinkle into the whole thing because he's obviously, like, I mean, he does mashups. So he's obviously taking other people's stuff where it's like, okay, you guys kind of like this rapper's verse, but we all remember growing up in the 70s to this song. So we're going to put them together, and it's going to be Ultimate Jam You Always Love. Oh, yeah, we got Biggie over Tiny Dancer. What you going to do about it? Nice, right? But the thing I dig where I think you kind of find genius and kind of playing with those lines is when you go and start putting, like, Two Live Crew over Paul McCartney, where, you interject the verses, you interject the vocals of I love you with, hey, we want some pussy.
Yeah, right.
So now you're going and showing like those changes we've had in the years from what we enjoy and stuff
Definitely
like
his
that.
perspective on the last, half century.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Just a little wrinkle into that stuff.
Well, it's crazy.
Definitely. All right. So we're sitting there talking about influences, things we've seen before, things that we're kind of tired of. But we're also excited in the video game world about things we may not have seen before.
Yeah, there's some awesome stuff coming out.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Go with your picks first.
I think Infamous 2 looks amazing. Showed you some video of that. And
Second Son.
Yeah, Second Son looks great.
Anyone from the Northwest, I have a feeling you're about to be stunned going through their map of Seattle. You might even be able to find your house. It looks like it's going to be that accurate.
It is. It's super cool looking. And it was actually, because the team lives in Seattle, they got a really good feel for, there's, there is a distinct look when it rains in Seattle, just based on the architecture, like what their streets are made out of, the size of the streets, there's a very distinct look there, and I think they fucking kill it, man.
Yeah, no, they got the Seattle green.
Right.
That Seattle green that happens in the foliage because you have the mist, so it has a grayness, it adds to this darkness. They nailed the Seattle green.
Yeah. No, and I cannot wait to play it. It just looks like a lot of fun. It looks, the voice actor that did the main character from BioShock Infinite, Last of Us, and something else recently, he's doing the voice for the main character in this.
Nice.
He's completely face mocapped. It looks a lot like him. Like, they did a really good job.
Really?
Yeah, and I think it's one of the first games you're going to really see some power out of, beyond Killzone, Shadowfall. You're going to see a lot of the power of the PS3, or PS4 rather, come out.
A lot of big environments. We're talking about a lot of people on screen, a lot going on.
Explosions, a lot of stuff that gets destroyed and stays there for a while. One of the big things about having a faster a faster machine running games is the idea that you can keep a lot of these really expensive things on screen, like in terms of like memory allocation and stuff. So you break down a barrier or a tower or something, and you still have those big chunks of metal laying around, and they don't just sink into the ground or just kind of vanish out of. So it looks like when you cause destruction, you feel the ongoing presence of destruction around you. Like it doesn't.
The
it doesn't
engine
turn
is
to pretty
accounting
again
for what you've done to the environment.
Yeah.
Like.
And just some of the particle effects they're doing are just some of the most pretty
that
fucking
neon
things.
shit's cool.
Yeah, it's so
Neon's
dope.
cool.
And I actually watched another video, and I kind of get a better feel for how he dashes with his neon. So the smoke, he kind of like vanishes into like a trail of smoke and then reappears.
Mm-hmm.
With the neon, he's got like almost looks like somebody did was taking photos of him. So you see like just him in motion, but several like.
So they're doing a lot of has a similar effect as when people do
buildings. If you're like going at a building, you'll go up it. Whereas smoke, you kind of have to climb more, and you can hover and fly. But this one, you can you're just dashing around. You kind of follow the topography of the terrain. So he like dashed at a building and went straight at the side, and then jumped off that, and like just was. It's fucking so cool looking, and his animations for him climbing are amazing. He grabs onto anything in the environment, light poles, this fucking either the top or the bottom. You like hugging windowsills and shit. Like it's just freedom of movement. And
this is definitely one of those games that like in the video game world is going to take over the world a bit. The other one, you put me onto this game, and more I see about it, this game's just going to own. Titanfall is going to own.
Yeah.
You put mechs and first-person shooter in the same world, and you found a way to make it balanced, it's over.
Well, see, that's one of those things, and I was telling you about Skyhawk earlier, is like, after seeing a lot of Titanfall, it looks like, Call of Duty with mechs, and I dig that. Like, fucking cool. And I love, their movement system is amazing, and I can't wait.
That and, like, it's one of those games where you see so much thought in the decisions they made, where it's like, all the strategy people are going to be able to employ with the double jump wall run feature, like whether it's get in this corner because the guy's going to be looking at me at ground level and I'm going to be up there and pop.
Right. Spatial awareness is amazing in that game,
yes,
and I think
that's it.
A lot of first-person shooters that have great movement systems and then really focus on verticality within the game environment, like, lends itself to really interesting gameplay, and especially with the idea of the size comparison between mechs and stuff. So being a pilot and being on the ground, the idea of being above is huge. It's paramount to your survival, because if you're on the ground, you're going to get stomped. If you're, at a similar level with the Titan, you're going to get shot in the face probably.
But I think that's the deeper brilliance of this game, is they found a way to definitely, if you don't have a mech, you're going to have a disadvantage. But
in some instances, but
it's not going to be
there's
lopsided.
tons of ways to kill him.
They
because
balanced it.
Yeah.
They balanced, by the little things, and that what I think is the deeper worth with that game.
Right.
Yes, initial shock value is going to be like, oh, this looks cool, but it's still going to be, the playability is going to be fantastic, because they found a way not to put you in the Halo instance where it's like, Jackass has a warhog, he's just running everyone over.
Right.
Damn.
They give you a lot of anti-Titan weapons, and I think that's, and it seems like a lot of the weapons that the Titans have are more geared to kill Titans as well. There's like heavy machine guns that lend itself to killing pilots, but I think the idea of like having special grenades to throw at Titans, being able to jump on the back of them, and then also like all the rocket launchers and shit that they have, like gives you a great arsenal to defend yourself and attack.
So I kind of stated it like it's a true fact, but I kind of want to give you a chance to make your predictions this upcoming year. What are going to be, like, give me 3-4 games you think are going to be the ones where it's like everyone's playing it.
I think what I'm hoping for is that, so Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes comes out pretty shortly.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Phantom Pain's hopefully coming out this holiday season. And I see hopefully Ground Zeroes is so good that it gets a lot of people on board,
Right.
But their online mode is what I'm really excited for. I hope that Metal Gear Solid, Ground Zeroes, and Phantom Pain are the great single player experiences that we expect from Kojima Productions. But when it comes to their multiplayer, I think that they have a chance to revolutionize in terms of the player movement. Like I was showing you Metal Gear 4,
Right.
being able
Real
to be on
quick,
your belly and stuff.
Real quick, explain to everyone the multiplayer they're doing with Ground Zero.
Well, I don't think it's in Ground Zeroes, but in Phantom Pain they have announced multiplayer. They haven't really showed anything off, but from what I've seen from Metal Gear 4, Metal Gear Solid 3, Substance when that came out, they had a lot. Had a lot of player movement, like freedom, especially in 4. Metal Gear Online was just so amazing in terms of being able to, you can be on your belly, you can be on your back, you can roll around, you can play dead, you can get against walls, you can go first or third person for aiming.
Yeah. Real quick for people who don't know, explain like the objective and the play style
Okay.
online for Metal Gear.
For the Metal Gear games are more geared towards stealth, and 4 kind of opened it up in terms of a lot of being able to play how you want to play, which is there's a store in which you can buy ammunition at all times, which is something that Metal Gear's never had. And so a lot of people kind of scoffed and were like, man, well, that you can just run and gun through the whole game, and it's like, man, if you're playing on extreme and you're doing that, I would or if you're playing on Big Boss Hard, I'd love to see you do that because it's fucking tough, man. So Metal Gear's been one of those games that gives you freedom. It's one of the only games I know that's typically like a game where you kill people where you can kill nobody, and there's not a lot of games out there that do that.
Right.
Like you try killing nobody in Call of Duty,
Yeah, right.
giving you options, right?
Even in other stealth games, there's so many times where it's like, just kill this guy, it's gonna be easier. Whether you're talking about even though sometimes missions they set it up, whether you're talking about your Assassin's Creed or your Splinter Cell series, you get to a point where it's like, dude, doing this non-lethal thing's just not viable.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, like Metal Gear gives you choices, and their online really reflects that from what I've played of 4. I loved Metal Gear Online of 4. It was just fucking cool, man. There's a lot of different systems they had that I don't think are going to be in Ground or Phantom Pain, or let's just call it Metal Gear 5. Just because the technology wasn't in that timeline. So Metal Gear, I believe Ground Zeroes takes place in 1975 or so, and then Phantom Pain takes place in 1984. Snake's in a coma for 9 years, and I believe that's when they started doing the clones. That's when they come up with Solid Snake, Liquid, and Solidus. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to tie all this together, because I played almost every damn game that's in the actual canon. I've even played a lot of the ones that weren't in canon, but I love the story. It's crazy. It's craziness, and I love it.
Saga continues.
Yeah. So that should be
Beautiful.
really cool. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Another game I think is gonna have. I'm not gonna be playing it just because I don't play these type of games because the requirement they take. Another game that I think is gonna absolutely drive people nuts because their friends are only gonna be talking about. Yeah, I spent 8 hours playing Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be playing that.
That is going to be gnarly. Just regular Elder Scrolls, people are putting hours into it. But now
Skyrim, yeah. Like people.
Yeah, Skyrim.
Or any of the games, really. Morrowind. Right. I played a lot of Morrowind, a lot of Oblivion, a lot of Skyrim.
But now you're giving it a World of Warcraft setting where, you're playing online with other people. It's, it might be the one that dethrones.
Well, see, the problem I have... I would be all into it, and it looks very much like Skyrim and the idea of being able to do third or first person, and I really like that, but the combat is what gets me. And so one of the things that has always kind of held me back from playing MMOs is that I like more kinetic combat, and that's one of the things that Skyrim and Oblivion really try to do better, and they both just kind of failed pretty crazily to me. There's actually, talking about Kickstarter games, Kingdom Come is a Kickstarter game that's being developed by some people from Crytek, and they've worked on, have a really cool team going on, and they have an investor, and I think they're trying to get, I want to say a couple million, maybe 100 million, I don't know. They're really going, no, I think it was closer to 10. I can't remember. But anyway, they're trying to do a medieval game that has no dragons. It's got no wizardry. It's
almost historical fiction.
Yeah, that's what they're going for. It's awesome. It's got horse combat. It's running on Crytek 3 or CryEngine 3, so it's gorgeous. They have a really innovative first-person combat design they're trying to work on, and just, I mean, they say it's actual gameplay, and I want to see if it holds true because the stuff that they showed is amazing. It's not just like everybody like fucking swinging a sword at each other. There's a lot of parrying. There's a lot of like it seems like a lot of real sword movement.
So they have some
of
sort of like almost fighting game style of combos and executing moves. Maybe
it's almost it's more realistic than that almost. Like
really,
I see what I imagine in a game like that is like if I don't hold down, let's say shift is your button to like ready your sword. So if you don't, you're holding your sword and so you don't see it like up in your face or whatever. You hold shift to ready it, and then maybe by doing certain strokes with your mouse, like movements, that would replicate into, you know, exact movements of your sword. So if the sword's coming at you diagonally, like you have to move your sword. You have to hold shift and move it in a way that, you know, would counter that, or you're going to get hit. And I think, I don't know, just making it visceral, making it kinetic, and given enough options. Like, I want a system to be able to parry. I want a system that, you know, allows me to dodge a bit and, like, juke and stuff to whatever ability. But games like, what was it called?
And that's a hard balance, is going and making that possible, but at the same time not making it cool. I mean, because that's something that's lacking now. I mean, people really went away from it. I think, God, I'm gonna mess it up. The MechWarrior games.
Yeah.
Like they got so deep into the technical, people were like, okay, that's how gnarly it could go. Let's stay away from that because we're gonna have a bigger audience if we go and keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, it's one of those things where and that's the reason why this project isn't being produced by a big company, is because the idea what they want to create is more hardcore. And so they even showed like some of the so like your traditional RPG, there's a lot of like crafting systems and stuff, but when he was doing it, he was like doing blacksmithing. He actually had his sword out and you had to like rotate it.
Oh, cool.
And like so you had your stone spinning and you had to rotate the blade and like actually
so there's a bit of technique to go and doing it, not just getting so many supplies and ba-bum.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's fucking cool, you know? Like, how cool is that? If you have to like feed your horse, that'd be awesome.
Right.
Or you pay somebody to do it.
But once again, it's balanced because I think GTA, they got a little bit too heavy into that, where like you've got to eat, you got to keep this. Yeah. And then so they switched it to a hardcore mode to where you have to keep all your guys' levels in sync, you know. Definitely. All right. We're getting to that point. It's running a little bit long. Real quick, I want to go over a couple of games that are going to be coming out that aren't going to take over the world, but they're cool games you may have to dig for and find. First of all, Daylight. Psychological thriller type. Basically, you're a dude, wakes up with amnesia. You're in a hospital. You don't know what's going on. And all you have to navigate this whole crazy world is a cell phone. But here's what's cool about this game. It has a storyline. It goes through it. Each room is randomly generated.
Oh, very cool.
Everything is set up. So the first time you play this game is going to be totally different than the second time you play this game. It's going to have a different story arc. It's going to go by because all this stuff, each room and how many enemies are in each room and what pops out of where is all randomly generated. That's a cool concept that awesome. I think could be really utilized. Mikami's got The Evil Within. He's the guy who set up Resident Evil 4. Also really heavily involved in Dino Crisis, Devil May Cry, all that stuff.
Fucking Dino Crisis.
This game looks cool because he's a Resident Evil guy, but if you look at the game, it's got a real Silent Hill vibe to it. Yeah. All the creatures are a lot less zombie-based and more like things pulled out of your nightmare. So that could be interesting. Everybody's Gone to Rapture. This game is done by, I believe they're called Chinese Room, the developer who does this. They also did a game called Dear Esther. This is one of those games.
They're redoing Dear Esther.
Nice.
In Unity engine.
Cool.
They're trying to bring it to consoles.
Yeah, so here's what's really cool about this game is if you guys played Dear Esther, that they're so poetic and they're so committed to the storytelling and really almost having a cinematic sense that they show shots. They're taking that same attitude of fully immersing in the idea into this solar eclipse, 1980s apocalypse sort of vibe. And if you look at the trailers, it almost has a Spielberg sort of feel to it. Where Spielberg, even no matter how crazy it is, it almost feels homey and comfortable and somewhat nostalgic. They really have that vibe, and they let the environment do a lot of the storytelling. Tons of other stuff I can get to, but that's about it. Any last thoughts or any games you'd like to talk about?
Joe Danger's developer Hello Games is coming out with a game called No Man's Sky, and I think they showed this at E3, and it looks fucking amazing. It's kind of
Really?
on the same. It's very unlike Joe Danger. It's on the same heels as like a randomly generated room thing.
Nice.
But this is procedurally generated worlds. So you have a spaceship that you're able to travel between worlds in. I think they just got flooded like a month or two ago. Their offices got flooded.
Oh no.
So hopefully that didn't slow them down too much in terms of like losing
each
stuff.
planet you go to is going to be different no matter what?
Yeah, I believe it's all procedurally generated. So it's the whole fucking planet, and it's multiplayer and the ability to fly between planets like in real time or doing space jumps and shit like that. Very, very cool stuff.
Oh, and one last game, D4. Have you heard about D4? D4. Basically, it's called Dark Dreams Don't Die. It's a detective-based gameplay. You're a detective who's going and trying to solve the murder of his wife. But every time you touch a memento, you can go back in time. But they also use the Kinect. So each room or each setup you go into, you go and control your own person. You have the choice of just clicking on it, or if you can actually open a door. But each thing, using the Kinect and using the pointer, you can go and examine the scenes, find clues, find stuff out. That and story-wise, it is so weird, and it is so twisted.
This is for the Xbox One?
I believe this is an Xbox. Well, Kinect, yeah. I believe Xbox One exclusive. But it's going to be one of those games where you play it, and it's just different from everything else you play. Like, storyline, just the vibe you get off of it. It's going to be very un-video game-ish, more like watching an indie film.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up, boss. All right. My name's Sam. I got Nobe across the table from me. This is Sam and Nobe, the podcast. Remember, Friday night, go to the Fat House. Go to the Red Room.
Got some stuff going on. Make sure you check out nerdwest.com. Some always great. If you like more game-related blogs from the Northwest, that's where to go.
Yep. All right. Peace out.
Adios.